Hi everybody, this is Lee at Fresh Astrology, and we are looking at Jupiter, which has gone into its kind of home space of Sagittarius today on November 8th, 2018. And so that's exciting. It's always exciting when Jupiter goes somewhere. It's like Venus. We like to see where Jupiter is going, especially if we're tracking our charts and anticipating some kind of new luck somewhere. People kind of look at it like this little four-leaf clover that goes through the chart. And it definitely is and can be. Oh, excuse me. Let's see. Let me turn that off. It definitely can be. So that's true, but it does so much more. There's a lot of more richness to it, and rich is a good word for Jupiter. But don't just think in terms of money and wealth, but think of a richness to the texture of life, a richness to life, a deepening, an expansion, more experience, especially going into Sagittarius. More knowledge, more investigation, more questing after something. Especially in its sign of Sagittarius, it leads you out into the world, into the unknown. You become more adventurous in general, no matter what your sign is. You become more so, more curious, more willing to step out of your comfort zone, to learn something, to experience something. So it's very exciting when Jupiter moves, and this is a fun place to have it. Of course, a lot depends on your personal chart, but generally speaking, for all of you, this would be a fun place to have Jupiter. You don't just look at Jupiter when you're trying to interpret what Jupiter in Sagittarius means. You can parse it out that way and say, all by itself in a vacuum, Jupiter in Sagittarius means X, Y, and Z. But to get more information and to understand it more deeply, you would want to look at, especially today, as it marches, moves, glides, whatever Jupiter does, expands into Sagittarius. You want to look at what's happening at this same time. And there's a lot. There's so many changes happening. We're on, as I said, in the October, November, December forecast for this quarter. We're on the cusp of so many new beginnings. So many new beginnings. They're just all the way across the board here. The only things that are just kind of hanging out for a long time are Pluto, Neptune, Saturn to some degree. They're not as cusp-oriented, doorway-oriented. So they indicate places on the chart where there's still more happening for you, for all of us. There's still more work to be done, especially with Saturn and Pluto. With Neptune, there's still more compassion needed, connection to our spiritual side, connection to that which is larger than us. There's so much more learning and evolving we're supposed to do just as souls, spirits, however you think of us on this planet. If you think we're nothing but flesh and bone, you're not getting the Neptune vibe, or you're resisting the Neptune vibe. You could use it, I guess, in different ways. I mean, there are people who are just, kind of firm on their belief that there is no spirit, there's no such thing as a soul or spirit or anything beyond our flesh and bone. And I don't know if you're here, actually, if you're paying attention to astrology. So I'll address all of you as though you do believe in the spirit or the soul. But that there's a lot of learning to be done there. And we can see it when we look around. When you look at the polarization going on the planet, everywhere, there's this pull between, my business partner Mimi put it so well in our, she writes a blog for our members. What did she say? She said it really well. When I say our members, I have a company called Tribe Trips and Retreats, and if you want to join that, if you're a woman over 40 and you want to start your own business or have a business and want support, go to Tribe Trips and Retreats and join, and you'll get Mimi's blogs, but they're also posted on our website. But she said, she was describing the polarization. It seems like there are people who are very concerned with the material world, very concerned with kind of gathering and kind of creating a fort and saying, this is mine. There's that part of the polarization, and then there's a part of the polarization where it's more outward focused and saying, what's ours? How can we share what's ours? And but she said it in a different way. But that's kind of where Neptune is wanting us to do a lot of work as a planet. So it doesn't matter what country you're in. It doesn't even matter what side of that polarization you're on. We're all doing work there. Let's see if there's anything else. We have the North Node and South Node turning into new signs, just as Jupiter is doing this move into Sagittarius. That's huge. I mean, I've always said, if I could only use one thing on a chart, if we could only have one thing visible to help a person out and say, this is what's going on for you, it would be the North Node. Just one thing, because it implies the South Node. So it automatically gives us two, so it's sort of like cheating. But so that would be a good answer on the astrology test. But the North Node is, I would say, if you could only pick one, I would pick the North Node. That would be where to look in a person's chart. And that's transitioning from Leo into Cancer, which is a big deal. It kind of flows into what I just said about Neptune. So even though Neptune's not moving, I mean, it is moving ever so slightly in a chart because it moves so slowly out there. So it's like, seems like it's just like permaglued into Pisces and into this 12th house placement on the universal chart. So what I just said about this polarization and caring, how do you care? Do you care for something by walling it off and putting a fortress around it and locks and bars on the windows? Is that how you protect? That's one part of the polarization. Another way we protect is to say, quick, let's all see what we can do together. Let's all work together, and here, I have a loaf of bread. Let me share it with everybody here. If we all have a little bit, we'll share it and we'll all get something. That's another way to protect and to nurture. And so and it's very feminine energy. And in the States, we've just had this major election cycle where women definitely were a theme. So it's interesting here politically at home, and we're in this realm of home with Cancer. So there's a lot of feminine energy right now. In fact, I just had a very intuitive friend text me, what's going on with all the feminine energy, because she can just feel it out there. I'm trying to convince her to come on and talk with us together because she is from a long line of tarot readers from Mexico and has just kind of this woo-woo running through her blood, and actually has a tarot deck that's been passed down through the family, for many, many years. And that's more unusual, at least in the United States. I don't know that many people who have that. So I think it would be fun to have her come on and speak, but she's not sure yet. So I'll keep working on her. But anyway, she feels all that feminine energy and doesn't really, I guess, she doesn't really watch astrology, so she was just asking me if there was some astrological reason. And I think it's this shift that we're feeling. What else is cuspy here? So then in the final quarter of this year, I spoke a lot about Uranus retro working with Venus retro, and they're right on these other cusps between Aries, Taurus, and across the chart, because they're across from one another, Libra and Scorpio. So there's that dichotomy, that pulling in kind of opposite ways, but they're working together always. So sometimes we think we're opposite and separate, but we're always working together, always, always, always. Something to remember in personal dynamics too. You're always participating in a dynamic where you're working together and agreeing to be that way. may not feel like it or seem like it, but it's an agreement to be that particular way. And that's what's happening in this kind of weird polarization on our planet. We're agreeing somehow to work out a larger issue in this particular way. And things, but I think what's happening is we're on the cusp of needing to actually work it out. You can't stay in this pulled out, polarized state forever. There's no forever in reality. Everything's always in flux. And there's this pendulum quality or this rubber band quality where you can stretch for a while apart, but then eventually there's this dynamic that pulls people back to center, pulls the planet back, pulls things back to center, but it's in flux again. It'll go back out in, stretchy, twisty ways. Reality, that is, and whether or not things seem polarized or not, and whether or not problems were actually being solved in a way that moves things forward. And so right now what's being asked is that we actually go ahead and move things forward. We're not quite there yet, but that quality of Uranus opposite Venus and everything retrograde heightened that tension, and is still a bit heightened right now. But Jupiter, let's get back to Jupiter. So that's all this, not everything going on, but that's a lot of the stuff going on around Jupiter right at the same time. And so Jupiter into Sagittarius is typically an upbeat, kind of jazzy. It's sort of, if you think of the jazz age, it's kind of got that quality. So people, it can get sometimes a little heady and out of control. If you think of the 1920s and flappers, and there was a lot of booze consumed during that time, and things, this money, like the stock market, everything just went crazy. And then when things crashed, it crashed in a really big way. And so in our own personal lives, so I'm not saying, oh, that's what's going to happen to us right now. It's possible in some cases that you'll see some of that, but we can't control all of that. But think of yourself. Whatever Jupiter is going to enhance for you right now, just keep an eye on, is it starting to feel like a frenzied 1920s party, or does it feel manageable and just lovely? Do you feel a sense of peace and groundedness through this? Or are you starting to feel like you're just whirling out of control, like, F. Scott Fitzgerald novels? So notice what's going on with you and what you'd like to get from this, or work with this. How would you like to work with this energy? I'm trying to find the right words. You want to definitely allow in any abundance. Stay grounded would be, and there's a lot of good grounded energy in Capricorn. And so I think if you're focused on how you're going to go into the world and be in the world in a grounded way, using that Pluto and Saturn energy in Capricorn, that helps us stay grounded, helps balance it out. And there's going to be a little bit of tension between Jupiter in Sagittarius and Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn because of their proximity to one another. There'll be a little bit of feeling like you're kind of going between the two, or one's competing with the other, not in a horrible way, but I think ultimately in a very helpful way. It can be very helpful. So if you're interested in I'm going to do another class in the new year. Last year I did more of a kind of exploration of your own chart and teaching you just some basics about the planets in your chart, and a little bit about the year, 2018. That was that class. And then this class I'd like to, as I move a little bit away from astrology myself, I'd love to share with, I know there are a lot of people who watch me who are interested in astrology themselves, to actually maybe have a business, and the people who have been watching me for a while do like my approach. And so for those of you who'd like to do, if you have interest in a class, it would be online. It would be at a specific time because we're going to be interacting. So it wouldn't be a do it on your own kind of course. We would be interacting on a webinar situation for about 90 minutes for about 6 weeks, one night a week for about 90 minutes. But if I get a lot of interest from Australia or Europe, I'll see what I can do to fix the times. But so if it isn't one night a week, it may be like a Saturday midday. But it depends on what area of the world has the most interest and how I can work out those times. Or maybe I would divide it into 2 classes I could manage if I can do that. But what we would really work on, just to make sure you understand what the class is we would kind of blend my coaching approach and how I'm thinking, what helps me do astrology the way I do it. And the way I would define that is it's very intuitive, so we would work on how do you get more intuitive with astrology, and we would work on how to actually talk to another person and to the YouTube camera in a way that feels compassionate, kind, has a little bit of a coaching quality, and is always taking into account the other person. And that being said, I will also teach you that no matter how hard you try to do that and how much you're open to doing that and how much you practice doing that, there's always going to be, if you get out in a worldwide stage like this, there's always someone in dissent. It's just the way it is. You don't pay attention. You see who comes in and what they say about you, the people who keep following you. And you do what resonates with the most people. And there's always going to be someone out there saying whatever, and I'm not, like, I don't know why, this is always a mystery to me, why somebody would take the time to write a negative comment. It's just beyond me, because if I see something I don't like, I turn it off, and I just think I'm not going to probably watch them again. But I don't feel the need to tell that person I don't like them. That's always hilarious to me, because it's like, who takes the time to do that? Like, what? And it ultimately makes me feel bad for them, because that's like, what a way to live. Anyway, but what we'll do is practice with each other. So I'll have you guys do some mini kind of sessions with each other in our classroom, and I'm gonna keep this a small class so that we can actually do this. It can't be 100 people. It's got to be much smaller. So the first people who express interest, I'll get you on a list. I'll let you know more, and I'll advertise. And then the first people who sign up get in, because it's going to be small. I'm keeping it under 15, maybe under 12 people. So anyway, we will practice together. So I'll have you do some mini readings for each other. We'll assess, okay, here's what you could do here, and I'll be giving you some tools to help you coach yourself as you, just in general in life, but as you specifically focus on your career, some focusing tools and some ways to make sure you're in a very healthy space with good boundaries as you do this work, because I think that is the hallmark I have, is there's a sense of boundaries. And I came into astrology with the determination to create good boundaries in astrology and to think with compassion about others. That's the whole reason I got in. It was even kind of accidental that I got in, but that's my whole thing. And so if you want to practice that in a kind of private setting with me and with some other people who are like-minded and want to practice the same thing, let me know of your interest in the comments, and I'll at least get a sense of, is there interest here? All right, guys, and happy Jupiter into Sagittarius. Oops, let's see if I can. All right, bye, guys.